Hello, dear friends. We're continuing our series of talks on secrets of the eternal book, embarking on a journey into ourselves. Toldot, show number 1. As always with us is the Kabbalist, Dr. Michael Leitman. Hello. And today we're beginning a new chapter called Toldot in Hebrew, meaning generation, birth, generations, continuity. Right. So, we talked about this already a bit, but everything's repeating itself. What happened with Abraham is now happening with Isaac. His wife can't give birth, and they start pleading. What does Rebecca's inability to give birth mean? For me, the simplest thing is to explain how it mechanically works. Zeranpin, Malchut, yeah. In the physical language of Kabbalah, about the connection and separation of forces that govern everything, that's the simplest way. Because it's the clearest and most scientific language where you can measure everything, give everything their own definition, and then there are no problems or doubts that maybe you said something wrong or someone might imagine something. And if we try to use some kind of intermediate language, but not the allegorical one, like the one used by heroes on the stage of a theater or something, but to see what are they actually acting out according to the thought of the great director, then you get a completely different picture. Meaning these are forces that control and govern a person, and this entire theater exists inside a person. And these forces that govern him are called by these names, and these forces, they all the time go through different incarnations and changes, rising ever higher, forming ever greater connections between them in order to bring a person and mankind and all of creation to become like the Creator. And therefore what Abraham experiences with Sarah and his offsprings, and then Isaac with his wife and offsprings, and Jacob with his wives and offsprings, all these are simply degrees of the ascent of the one simple soul, and it's the same in every person, and every person on the inside goes through all of these metamorphoses. So it's like a wheel that's turning all the time. Right, it's turning back and forth as if, but it's going forward all the time. Meaning the same point repeats itself all the time, but even though that it repeats, it goes in a cycle, it's advancing, right? And this is what it's about. How in the next state happens the same that happened on the previous state and on the following one and so on, until the end of all of these states, where a person who went through all this becomes completely like the Creator, enters the land of Israel. Not only that he enters it, but he also digests it. Eretz in Hebrew comes from the word desire. Yashar Kel, Israel, meaning straight to the Creator, that the desire on the inside becomes completely like the Creator, even though that to begin with, it was the complete opposite. And all of these cycles, these life cycles, degrees, they're only in order to come to this state. Does it end at some point? Of course. After a person finished all of his work and became like the Creator, similar to the Creator, then all the changes come to an end. There's nothing left to do. You become completely corrected, in adhesion with the Creator, in equivalence of form with Him. And after that, altogether, there's some kind of a different kind of work and changes and so on. Things that we know nothing about, because there's a completely different philosophy, understanding, perception, feeling of a completely different world, a completely different level, dimension, that right now we can't even imagine. How can we exist there in that dimension? How we see, feel, understand, interact. Do all of these limitations that we have right now in us, do they really exist? Are there such concepts like myself and my environment, or is it all inside of me? In short, how it works is unclear to us. So it's really interesting to take a peek in what's going on there, right? Well, not really. Why? I'd really like to see it. But what desire can you have for it if right now you have nothing from that state? It's simply some kind of an artificial curiosity. I don't have a desire for it, and to the contrary, I have a very strong and clear desire, very clear definitions and understandings of what I have to do right now in order to achieve the next following degree. It's like, right now I'm hungry. I need some normal sandwich right now, and you're saying, wait, suppose for a week, and you'll have an incredible lunch. Doesn't work for me. So you have to advance degree by degree. Exactly. And you see how this weekly portion is called generations, meaning we have to go step by step. Before we delve deeper in, what does it mean that in this case, Rebecca can't bear children? Now, all of them can't bear children because a person starts out with their desire not being suited for spiritual development. You can't give birth to the next degree, and therefore, it's impossible to bear children, meaning his desire, his wife, can't give birth to anything, and she needs correction, and therefore, in every chapter, it tells us about how this female desire is corrected and can then bear children. So let's delve into the writings. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. First to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment, so they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel, so he was called Jacob. Because in Hebrew, heel means akev. That's why he was called Yaakov, Jacob, he who held on to the heel of his older brother. And even though that his older brother was born first, but actually, really the younger one is more important than the older one. Not that he's more important, really, but he determines the entire correction, and therefore the older is dependent on the younger. So what happens here is that we know the difference between them. They're practically the same. Once the one appeared, immediately after that appeared the other. So first is born man's egoistic desire called Esau. That's why he's called hairy. You see, it's necessary to understand at least some Hebrew because hair in Hebrew comes from the word se'arot, so'er, meaning having a strong, burning, stormy, egoistic desire to receive pleasure and to fulfill oneself. Actually, these are very good and big desires in and of themselves, but they're not corrected yet, and therefore he's completely immersed in these desires, and that's why he's called hairy. And the other one's born red, meaning what? Red meaning wanting to receive the light of chokhmah, the entire light of pleasure and fulfillment. And the other one is smooth, clean. He doesn't have any serious egoistic desires. He grabbed him by his heel. Exactly. That's how he comes out. Meaning he's born because actually the first one needs him. And we see the implications when they meet. When Esau sells Yaakov, his birthright. Meaning, what point is there to be first with my egoistic desires, in which I can't receive anything? The entire life me, because my ego inverts everything that's around me and myself too into something that's detrimental to myself and to others, and therefore my life is worse than death. Emptiness, wars, the different problems that I go into, these are Esau's thoughts. Exactly, yeah. We especially see it in our generation. Meaning, what do I need this entire life for? If this is my nature, if this is my state, this is what Esau tells Yaakov. And Yaakov, Jacob, he doesn't have such big desires, and therefore he can be corrected. And therefore he's calm. He's into roaming the fields, looking for something. Esau, he has to catch something, some meat to eat, something. And this one, no, sits quietly, studies. Exactly. He's engaged in more peaceful things. These are simply different qualities that exist in each of them, and even though that the main quality is nonetheless the quality of Esau, the great big desire to get pleasure, acquire, conquer, rule, man's nature. Yeah. But unless it's corrected with the help of Yaakov's nature, then it works to our detriment. And therefore, after the entire nature of Esau becomes revealed, like we're experiencing, this too are bad things. And therefore, we're in a state where we're ready to understand and accept that we need the quality of Yaakov. And if we want to live a normal life, to simply survive, and even beyond that, to feel some kind of whole, complete, and meaningful life that has some kind of perspective, then for that we need to live with the quality of Yaakov and not Esau. Meaning now is the time where we have to accept the quality of Yaakov and go back to the quality of Esau, but already to, so to speak, hold on to his heel. Meaning where Esau ends, this is where Yaakov begins. And Esau in our generation is coming to an end. And we feel that our development has no future, and now we have to start developing the Jacob in us. It's temporary. Afterwards, we'll go back to Esau to use that entire ego, but already with a method, with a direction, where it's already clothed in an ability to understand Jacob, and this is how they continue existing together. Not one instead of the other, but together. So first Esau, up until our time. Now came the time of Jacob, Yaakov, to start using his method and then to connect the two. And the method of Yaakov is the method of Kabbalah. No, the method of Kabbalah is the method of Yaakov, and then with the help of Yaakov, to correct Esau, meaning the future generation. Okay, let's continue reading. I have many questions. They're called twins. It says there were twin boys. Of course, because they appeared immediately one after the other. But in theory, twins should be similar, or not necessarily. But you see, they're opposites. We talked about this once, that even if twins are in different countries and so on, they feel the same things, choose the same things. They're the complete opposite of each other. This is how they're twins. They're like a mirror of each other. And therefore, in their future connection, there's wholeness and perfection, meaning not Yaakov and not Esau, but the combination of the two, where each of them uses all of his qualities in order to complete the other. Yaakov without Esau, he's small, little, incapable of anything. He only has the right correct ideas, but he can't implement, realize them. Esau without Yaakov, he's a wild animal. He destroys himself, and therefore he's miserable. And so, when they start understanding their own incompleteness and connecting, and this is still ahead of us, it's not what we have today, but after we implement the method of Kabbalah of Yaakov, then we will come to the correct interaction between all people in the world, and we will correct both of these qualities, and this will bring humanity to a state of good and prosperity. It feels like there are many revelations that we can find in studying these two brothers. The entire nature of our world is included in them, and of all worlds. Just to pay attention to this, and we find all the laws. Everything is born from them, from these two sons. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, meaning Yitzchak was on the degree of Binah, 60. 60 is the highest level of Binah, meaning completely above all egoistic qualities, and therefore he could give birth to both. It's called Gar de Binah in the wisdom of Kabbalah. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Among the tents, what does it mean? That he was content among the tents. It means that he's always in a kind of envelope, and the intention in order to bestow. Surrounded by tents, you mean? Yes, and even though that this appearance in us is from within egoistic, but still, it appears as a home, an envelope, as Noah's Ark, like in a womb. Right, like in the womb of a mother. These are all the qualities of Binah, and this is how Yaakov is characterized. Isaac, who had a taste for wild games, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. This really, because Yitzchak knew that the future is in the egoistic desires, and that the ego is the substance of our entire world, and you have to use it correctly, because without it, there's no creation. Everything was created for it, and Yaakov, all in all, is a tool, a means for its correction. Therefore, Yitzchak, in relation to Abraham, is already more egoistically advanced. In him exists this entire egoism. He rises above it and therefore achieves the degree of 60 years. 60 is the complete degree of Binah, the complete quality of bestowal, even above the ego. And therefore he understands the entire perspective of Esau, the great big egoist that in the future will become corrected and will truly be great. While Yaakov, he's small, he's weak. In him are all in all small egoistic qualities. They're altruistic, yes, but they don't suit Yitzchak, because Yitzchak is the left line. He's nonetheless the founder of egoism. From him, the future egoism will come from Yitzchak. And Rivka, Yaakov's mother, she loves Yaakov. Yes, because Malchut is the corrected part, and so she's drawn to what's closer to her, what's less egoistic. Like in our world, the smaller the child, the more the mother loves him. The quieter the child is, he's naturally dependent on her, and therefore all of her love is dedicated to him. Okay, afterwards comes the moment where the birthright is sold, but before that, I looked it up in the great commentary, Midrash Rabbah. It says, the great commentary, Midrash Rabbah, is a book that was written 3,500 years ago. Right, and it's a very important source, and it says there, Abraham died, Isaac mourned his father, and Jacob prepared lentil stew for him. Turns out that when close relatives pass away, this is what you prepare. The tragedy didn't worry just one person in the house, Esau, who remained completely indifferent toward what happened and always went to hunt. That day, Esau committed 2 sins. He seduced an engaged woman and killed King Nimrod. The killing happened as follows. While hunting in the field, Esau saw King Nimrod surrounded by warriors. Nimrod wore a beautiful garment with the drawings of animals. It's something that Nimrod got from Adam, meaning the clothing is the ol chozer, the intention in order to bestow, and so on. Therefore, it protected him. So Nimrod, he was the great king of Babylon that Abraham ran away from, that Abraham fought all the time and couldn't defeat. Right, it's the biggest egoist. And suddenly comes Esau. Esau is also a big egoist, only born after Abraham already, meaning that already corrected in something, and therefore obviously he kills Nimrod. And the secret of this garment, of this clothing that Nimrod had, is that it attracted animals to him and made them completely obedient. Esau knew its qualities and wanted to get it at any price. He waited for the right moment, and when there were only 2 guards around Nimrod, he crawled up, killed them and Nimrod, and came back with this precious treasure. He went into the kitchen while Yaakov was preparing lentil stew and asked, "Why are you bothering with preparing all of this sophisticated food? Make something simple. Don't you know that Abraham, our grandfather, passed away and our father is mourning him? Therefore, I'm preparing this lentil stew to give it to our father." And Esau said, "Really? Abraham left this amusing world. Was he not given hundreds of years to live? He went forever and will never come back. He died just like Adam, the first man on this earth. He died like Noah did, despite his righteousness. All these questions, it's as if he's testing Yaakov and his faith. So actually what happened is that he took Nimrod's garment and he became Nimrod at that moment. Not only Nimrod, he became Adam. He collected the entire initial egoism represented by Nimrod. Yes, there's something very interesting here that we can't simply explain to our listeners. The ego is relatively small. It was born after Abraham. It was born after Yitzchak. From the corrected Malchut, from the corrected wife, Rivka. And now, with the help of this clothing, acquires an even greater egoism, rising even higher than Yitzchak, his father, rising above Abraham, meaning once again, it becomes the great almighty egoism, but inside of it, there's also the quality of Avraham and Yitzchak, meaning thanks to them, he can ascend, meaning the ego becomes even more qualitative and cunning. You see the questions that he's asking. What's going on here all of a sudden? Yeah, how is it that he suddenly died? What is that? This cunningness, it comes from Abraham and Yitzchak. Because a simple normal egoism, just moves forward. Give and take. But to give also only in order to take. And here it's already cunning, luring, through buying and selling. And in this regard, we can say that Esau's egoism, after going through all of these things, becomes much greater in a person. Meaning a person goes through all of these states that we're talking about. This is what every person has to go through. And after all of these states, he becomes more and more cunning, more complex, consisting of the quality of reception and bestowal, starting to understand the other person, knowing how to manipulate. It's not that he just eats them and that's that. He's skilled. He knows how to kill. He's serious. Yeah, it's an ego that is already worthy, that in its future development, it's worthy of achieving a state where it turns into Pharaoh and so on. Okay, jumping forward a bit, I want to ask, he's doing what he's doing in order to push Yaakov to the stage. This is the direction which he's working. Right, were it not for this, Yaakov couldn't get on his feet, because they all work through or in contradiction with one another. In the Torah it says that Esau is hungry and he's asking Yaakov to give him some lentil stew. He asks questions and he says, "Give me something to eat anyway." And this is what the Torah says. "Let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." That's why he was also called Edom. Jacob replied, "First sell me your birthright." "Look, I'm about to die," says Esau. "What good is the birthright to me?" But Yaakov said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Yaakov. Then Yaakov gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. Really, it's written beautifully, but the Creator wrote it, So what happened here? First of all, he was called Edom. So again, we're going back to red. Give me the red stew, and so on. Red is the manifestation of the light that fulfills the ego, what we call the light of wisdom, the light of chokhmah. But actually, these are tremendous egoistic pleasures. This is what he lacks and needs in order to feel life, to feel enlivenment, and he can't be fulfilled by anything. He can't attain or achieve anything but through Yaakov, through the work that Yaakov can do, Because to achieve the upper light and to be fulfilled by it, this is possible only if on the one hand you're in a great big desire like Esau, on the other hand in accordance with the upper light like Yaakov. So none of them can do anything by themselves. Meaning Esau, because it's a tremendous egoistic desire, suffers as a result of being empty, and Yaakov doesn't because he has small desires. So Yaakov, he's calm, quiet, lives at home, cooking his lentil stew, but he wants to buy the birthright. Right. What is he doing it for? He's doing it in order to correct Esau and together to achieve the complete fulfillment. And Esau sees that he too can't do anything. He says, what do I need the birthright for? Why act only with my ego? If you come before me, then I can be fulfilled. So I'm giving it to you. But why does it say I'm dying? I'm dying because in front of me there's this upper light that's killing me. I want it. It enters my desire without a screen or anything, and it simply kills me because of my ego. Because whatever I aspire for gives me only trouble. It's like we feel in our world, how on each and every step of our egoistic development, we get blows as a result and nothing else. And the same happens here with Esau, and this is why he says, what do I need this entire existence for? It's worthless. Either you come before me, and then with the help of these intentions that are similar to the light, I'll be able to be like the light, or my entire life is like being dead. But this is already the recognition of the tremendous egoism that's leading us to murder. This is what we have to acknowledge in our time. Why does it say here that Esau despised his birthright? Because actually, on his part, it's to despise, to disregard, but on the other hand, it's a tremendous step. I understand that I can't be first with my nature, that there has to be someone else to lead me, and by following him, I'll succeed. He'll complete his task, and I mine. Meaning it's a tremendous recognition of the entire creation, and how is it possible to change and correct it, and how this entire process was conceived from above. Unfortunately, our time's up already. Yeah, unfortunately. Feels like 2 minutes went by. So, dear friends, unfortunately we have to finish our show. I'll draw a conclusion. I'm not sure that it's correct, but it's to see Yaakov and to sell him your birthright, something like that. It's to start studying the wisdom of Kabbalah. Says Dr. Lightman, and we agree. So join us on our next shows. It's going to be really interesting. Till next time, all the best.